conversation about consumer expectations and control of last mile final delivery. I'm joined by Raj Patel. He is Senior Director of 3PL Global Industry Strategy with Blue Yonder. Hello, Raj.
How are you?
Good, thanks for being with me today. So, how has the rise of e-commerce changed consumer behavior and attitudes?
Well, you know, that's a very interesting question, right? I actually start out when I do address this kind of point is, if you look at what Steve Jobs did for Apple and the swiping of the phone and how people have gotten used to a certain way with technology when it comes to the phone. I think e-commerce now has made the consumer behavior pattern and expectation changed tremendously in the last 2 to 3 years. And we're not just talking about the Amazon effect, right? Which is, well, hey, I want my delivery in 2 days. Now we are seeing consumers that say, I want it in 2 days or less, a day or same day, but then I want to be able to control that. Like right now, I'm at home, but I'm going to be at the office in 2 hours, and you're telling me you're going to deliver it in 2 hours. I want to be able to say, instead of my house, deliver it to the office. Or vice versa, you're at the office and you want to pick it up at home, but nobody's home. You want to then pick it up at an alternative delivery location, right? So from a final mile delivery perspective, carriers have to be well positioned to say, okay, am I taking it to the office? Am I taking it to home? Am I taking it to an alternative delivery location? Because up until that time the package is delivered, the consumer has the right and the ability, right? It's not even the right, the ability, because you can change your delivery up until like almost an hour before it's finally delivered.
That fast, I mean that early, that late, up to an hour you can divert the package to a different destination.
Yes.
And that's not aspirational, that's actually happening right now efficiently?
I wouldn't say efficiently, but it is happening in the industry, right? So you're saying, I mean, typically if you look at big furniture delivery, you got a window of 8 to 12. That's a little bit easier when you can say, hey, I'm not going to be home in that 4-hour window. But we see deliveries that are happening within an hour, and you can say, hey, I want, if it's a UPS delivery or a FedEx, you can say, I want to deliver to a alternative delivery location, whether it's the CVS around the corner. So that puts a lot of burden on the shippers themselves to meet that expectation of that final mile delivery.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And by the way, I as a consumer, I don't want to have to pay for that privilege either. I want you to do it for free, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So it's from a retailer shipper perspective, is how do you balance that, right? There's a cost to serve the consumer.
Sure.
And keep that consumer experience high, repeat that consumer to be a repeat buyer. And you have to do these things, right? And I think that's what retailers and manufacturers and even 3PLs, because a lot of 3PLs are now having the pressure from the retailer to say, you're acting on my behalf, and if you are doing my pick, pack, ship, that's one thing, but if you're doing my delivery, then I need you to be able to have these capabilities because my consumers are expecting it. Oh, and by the way, my competitors are offering it.
Yeah,
So,
and by the way, if you mess up as a 3PL, it's not the 3PL that suffers in the minds of the consumer, it's the brand.
it's the brand.
You
100%.
say, oh, there's a lousy retailer, not realizing that it was the logistics that fell down. Nobody wants to hear that.
Yeah, definitely.
Right.
Yep. But like you said, I think the behavior and the expectation of the consumer has changed, not only from how I order, right? If you go back 5 years, and we'll wrap it up real quick, you go back 5 years, you go into the store, you can still do the comparison. Is it cheaper on Amazon? We were doing all that stuff.
Yeah.
Now it's like, okay, I want to buy it online, and I might buy 2 or 3 things, and I want to ease the returns, what Amazon has put out there. I think there's a huge gap in talking to a lot of folks here from a return perspective, right? If you look at returns naturally.
That's another subject entirely, is the return stuff.
Yes.
Okay, So, in other words, we, the consumers, are completely spoiled.
Exactly.
We want what we want, where we want it, when we want it, et cetera, et cetera. Do we understand, though, that this disruption we're facing, the global pandemic, is going to make it difficult to do that, and in some cases it's going to fail? Or do we just say, no, I don't care, I want it no matter what's going on out there?
Bob, I think you nailed it right there. For the first time in my life, and I've been in this industry 25 years, and when you say you're in supply chain, a lot of people are like, what is supply chain?
Oh, everybody knows now.
Everybody knows it now,
Yeah.
and that is why. I actually had somebody come over to my house to give me a quote last week, and he said, hey, for door parts, right? He was going to build me a door, and he said, for whatever reason, he goes, there's shortages of the actual hardware, there's shortages of knob, there's actually even shortage of the wood of how I can get it and whatnot. And he said, for the first time in my life, he goes, I understand supply chain. And he never asked me what I do for a living, but he understood supply chain. So I think the average consumer now is being educated on supply chain. There's a reason why there's toilet paper. Walmart didn't say, hey, we don't want to sell more toilet paper. We just didn't have enough, or we couldn't produce enough. But the consumer's getting smart. But the expectation is still, hey, I paid you for it. I want it when I want it, how I want it. Oh, and by the way, ease of returns, all that, the stuff that we talked about.
Maybe one way we can define supply chain is something that's invisible until it screws up.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, oh, we all know what supply chain is, right?
Yeah.
It's that thing that failed me, and it's that brand I will never use again, even though there was a pandemic and there was no fault from them not getting the equipment. And,
yes, 100%.
oh boy, this is difficult. Now 3PLs have to step up their game, don't they? What are they doing in order to make that possible? 100%,
right? So first and foremost, and the thing we talked about, or I'm sure you've talked about it here, 2 to 5 years of growth of e-commerce. Depending on what part of the world you're at, but right here in the US, some companies have experienced 5x e-commerce growth. And if you have a 3PL, right, you've got a certain footprint that you've already got with them. Now you're asking that 3PL to pump more volume, right, through the 4 walls. So you can increase footprint, but then we got this something called labor shortage that's going on.
Yep.
And then we got driver shortage that's going on. So it's like, hey, the 3PL is expected to continue to meet the SLAs or exceed the ones that we talked about the consumer has, meet them, but at the same time, I want you to push more volume through the 4 walls. It's got to be accurate. You got to have resource and labor, and you got to be able to deliver it. So it is putting more and more pressure onto the 3PLs. So what do 3PLs do? You got to get creative and innovative, right? And then within your 4 walls, if that means robotics, that means utilizing AI/ML, that means having a workforce management application that lets you trade out labor for different parts. They have to get creative because now that the onus is on them to take that additional volume and on behalf of the retailer or the manufacturer and push it through. So if you're a 3PL right now, it's exciting times, but it's also trying times. And when I say trying, I'm seeing a lot of 3PLs do a lot of pilot, which is good because generally speaking, 3PLs and freight forwarding, I mean, I want to say laggards in the industry, but now I think we're coming up to the forefront. We're trying things that we probably wouldn't have 10 years ago.
Yeah, on the firing line.
Yep.
Raj, thank you so much for your insights into what's going on with the spoiled consumer and how that individual is being serviced today in the final mile delivery. Now though, I want to just briefly talk a little bit about Blue Yonder. Tell me about what you folks specifically are doing right now to address this crisis and your customer needs.
Sure, Bob, so first and foremost, I think a lot of times when you say Blue Yonder, people are like, who is Blue Yonder? You probably, if you haven't heard of Blue Yonder, you've heard of our companies that have become Blue Yonder, right? We start with JDA, we start with Manugistics, you talk about I2, you talk about Red Prairie.
Some of the old venerable tech
some
names.
of the old leaders in their space, and then Blue Yonder, we brought in the AI/ML, and then here recently, we were wholly purchased by Panasonic, so we're a Panasonic Connected Solutions company. If you look at the Magic Quadrant, we are a leader in the 3 facets of supply chain. When you look at planning, you look at warehouse, and you look at transportation. So we provide end-to-end software across the supply chain. And a lot of our customers, whether it be retail, whether it be manufacturing, whether it be 3PL, they are looking for technologies that help them better serve their customers, whether it be our warehouse management system or our transportation management system, or just a control tower, right? Our control tower sits on top of everything to be able to give you visibility into where your shipment is, and then not just visibility, but actionable visibility where you can say, okay, this shipment is going to be late because it's stuck in the Suez Canal. I got to be able to move inventory from another facility. I've got X amount here. Can I move it here? What's that cost? What's that trade-off? So our technology enables all that. That's just on the execution part. On the planning part, we do everything from assortment planning, space planning, you name it. We obviously, I think 8 out of the top 15 retailers use us for various, parts of our application. But it's a good time to be in supply chain. I think we said it, and we grew up around supply chain, and our software is probably one of, in my mind, one of 2 or 3 providers that has connected the end-to-end supply chain on a SaaS platform. Obviously, we're partnered with Microsoft, so proud of that, and helping customers streamline their supply chain.
Exciting place to be, an exciting time. Raj, thanks so much for spending this time with me to talk about these issues. I really appreciate it.
All right, appreciate it too. Thanks.
I've been speaking with Raj Patel of Blue Yonder. Thank you very much for watching.